My name is Laura, and I'm 40 years old. I live in a small town in the state of Minnesota where winters last half the year and snow can pile up over a meter deep. I work night shifts as a nurse at St. Clair's Hospital, a place that's not too big, but enough to exhaust me by the end of every shift. I met Daniel on a snowy night, when he carried in a feverish little boy to the emergency room. The boy's name was Ella, 6 years old. Skinny and unusually silent. While I was taking his temperature, that he didn't look at me even once. His eyes stared blankly into the void. Daniel sat beside him, tense but calm, his hand gripping his son's as if afraid to lose him at any moment. I remember gently asking, "Where is his mother?" Daniel turned away and softly replied, "She passed away." Later, I learned that his wife had died of ovarian cancer just a year after giving birth to Eli. Daniel had been raising his son alone ever since. He was a firefighter, often away from home. So, Eli was mostly cared for by his grandmother, a very traditional, stern American woman, not easily welcoming to outsiders. I never thought I would fall in love with a man like Daniel, let alone step into a family with a child and a silent, aching void no one dared touch. But love arrives quietly. After that first encounter, Daniel would sometimes stop by the hospital with coffee for me. He'd ask how I was doing, invite me for walks on Sunday afternoons, those snowy park strolls where we'd sit on wooden benches, sipping hot cocoa and talking about life's little things. We loved each other quietly. No photos online, no loud declarations. I didn't rush to meet Eli either. I knew, for a child who had lost his mother so young, the world was fragile and grown-ups who come and go were more terrifying than any nightmare. 3 years later, I moved in with Daniel. No wedding, no ring, no flowers. We chose to live this way, simple, trusting, loving enough. Daniel told Eli, "Laura is going to live with us. She's not replacing your mom, but she loves me and hopes to be your friend." Oh, Eli was silent. He turned his face to the wall and quietly said, "You're not mommy." Oh, I smiled. I wasn't hurt, I understood. I simply told him, "I know, and I'm not trying to replace anyone. I just hope that one day you'll find me worthy of your trust." Oh, becoming part of a family that has lost a mother is like that. No flowers to welcome you, no sweet smiles. I lived between two voids, the one in Daniel's heart and the one in Eli's eyes. Outsiders thought I was lucky being a mother without giving birth, without the sleepless nights of diapers and feedings, but they didn't see the dinners Eli silently pushed aside, the school mornings when he refused to let me hold his hand, or the evenings I waited for a good night only to hear the door quietly shut. No one tells you what it's like to be a stepmother. I taught myself how to love without expecting love in return, how to give without receiving anything but silence. But I didn't give up, because in Eli's eyes, I saw a child who was fighting not against me, but against the fear of being abandoned again. I don't wish for him to call me mom. I just hope that one day, in the cold winter of Minnesota, he will feel that there is a woman who's always been waiting for him to open the door to his heart, even just a little crack. Moving in with Daniel and Eli wasn't what I expected. Not at all. I used to think that as long as I was sincere, patient, and gentle enough, Eli would eventually accept me. But no. The boy kept his distance clear, and painfully so. Every morning, I woke up early to make breakfast, toasted bread, fried eggs, and carefully poured unsweetened almond milk, Eli's favorite. But he never touched the tray I prepared. He'd open the cupboard, grab cereal, pour cold milk, and eat silently, as if I didn't exist in that kitchen. At first, I was hurt. Then I got used to it. I still made breakfast, like a quiet ritual, expecting nothing in return. I offered to drive Eli to school every morning. Daniel often had to leave early for work. Eli agreed, but he never spoke during the ride. He sat in the back seat, headphones on, eyes fixed out the window. Sometimes I tried to start a conversation. Eli, what's your first subject today? I don't know. Oh, did you bring your homework? Yes. That was it. I once heard someone say, children are very sensitive. If they don't like you, they won't hide it. And Eli never did. He kept his distance like I was just a stranger lodging in their house. Nothing more. I tried to make up for it with little gestures, sweet notes in his lunchbox, picking out the warmest clothes on snowy days, secretly buying the exact sticker packs he liked for his notebooks. But everything was met with silence. Daniel knew, but he was helpless too. He loved me, but couldn't force his son to love someone. One time he comforted me. You're doing everything right. It's just, Eli lost his mom too early. He doesn't believe anyone can take her place. I nodded. But I never wanted to take her place. I never tried to step into a role that wasn't mine. I just wanted to be seen as someone who's here, loving his child with everything I have. The pain didn't come from harsh words. It came from being ignored, from showing up every day and feeling invisible, from Eli's averted eyes, from the fact that Daniel and Eli had their own world and I was always on the outside, knocking with my heart. And no one answered. One day, Eli got hurt on the school playground. I was on shift when I received a call from the school office. I asked to leave mid-shift and drove nearly 40 minutes through a snowstorm to get there. His knee was scraped, his jacket torn, his eyes dry. I knelt down, cleaned his wound, and gently asked, "Does it hurt?" He didn't look at me, just whispered, "I want Dad. You can go." I stood up, nodded, and walked outside. Snow was falling thick and white. I stood silently at the school entrance, not knowing when my tears had started falling. That night, I didn't say anything to Daniel. I cooked, cleaned, and went to bed early. I didn't cry anymore, just felt a vast emptiness in my chest. One question kept echoing. Should I really be here? I began to wonder if I was forcing myself into a family that had no room for me. If I was trying to love a child who never wanted to be loved by me. But then, I remembered Daniel's first hug on the snowy day I moved in. I remembered how Eli, when he was smaller, once fell asleep on my shoulder while we watched cartoons together. I remembered the times he snuck glances at me when he thought I wasn't looking. I realized, loving a child who shares no blood with you isn't a straight path. It's a long journey of patience and hope. I haven't been accepted yet, but I'm not ready to give up. I'll keep making breakfast. I'll keep driving him to school. I'll keep hiding sweet notes in his lunchbox. Not because I expect gratitude, but because that's how I love. A quiet kind of love. A love that asks for nothing in return. Everything began to change on a winter night. A night that seemed like any other bitter cold and sidewalks covered in snow. Just like every other year in Minnesota, Daniel had an emergency shift that evening. He apologized for leaving me alone at home with Eli. I told him it was fine. I was used to it. Eli was in 3rd grade. Still a quiet boy. Silent like a shadow. Our relationship hadn't changed much. He wasn't cold like before. But we weren't close either. We were like two strangers living under the same roof, sometimes nodding, sometimes making eye contact, but never calling each other by name. That night, I brought Eli his usual warm milk and placed it beside his bed. He nodded in thanks, then pulled the blanket over his head. I turned off the light, gently closed the door, and was about to return to my room when I heard a faint voice. "Laura." I stopped. "I can't sleep," Eli said. "I feel cold." I turned back and gently sat beside him. "Do you want mommy to get you another blanket?" The words slipped out naturally. I may not have noticed what I had just said, but Eli did. He looked at me, eyes slightly wide in the dark. I quickly corrected myself. "I mean, I can get you another blanket." "Okay?" He didn't respond. I stepped out, grabbed the thickest blanket from the closet, and tucked it around him. I sat there for a moment, gently patting the blanket, thinking I'd get up soon. But then Eli turned and whispered, barely audible, "Can you stay here for a little while?" I nodded. Neither of us said another word. I just sat there, listening to the wind howl outside the window and Eli's breathing slowly grow steady. Just when I thought he'd fallen asleep, Eli suddenly spoke, his voice light as mist. "If I call you Mom, would that be okay?" I froze. My heart clenched and burst all at once. I couldn't answer right away, my eyes blurred with tears. I reached out and held his small hand resting on top of the blanket. "You can call me Mom whenever you're ready, and I'll always be here." Eli said nothing more. He closed his eyes, still holding my hand. I sat beside him like that, tears falling silently, not from sadness, but from a fragile happiness I had waited 3 long years for. The next morning, while I was making pancakes in the kitchen, Eli came down holding his teddy bear and said the first words in front of Daniel. "Morning, Mom." "Oh." Daniel froze. I turned away, pretending to be busy at the stove, so he wouldn't see my teary eyes and trembling lips. From that day on, everything began to change, not dramatically, but gently, like the first warmth of spring. Eli started calling me Mom in front of his friends, wrote my name in his essays, and shared with me stories from school, new games, and silly lunchroom jokes. One evening, while I was folding laundry, he walked in, handed me an orange sheet of paper, and smiled softly. "I drew this for you." It was a messy drawing: a house, a man, a woman with brown hair, probably me, a smiling boy, and a line at the bottom: "My family, Dad, Mom, and me." Oh, I pulled him into a hug, speechless. For so many years, I thought I'd never hear the word mom from him. I had prepared myself to forever be the big friend, the substitute, Laura. But today, I became Mom, not by blood, but through love that he gave of his own will. And I knew, the moment Eli called me Mom was the day I was truly born to be a mother. Ever since Eli called me Mom, something in my heart felt lighter, as if after years of breathing in a cold, airless room, a little sunlight finally found its way in. He began to open up, not much, not fast, but genuinely. Every morning, he sat down to eat the breakfast I made, no longer avoiding my gaze. One morning, he even poured more milk into my cup and said softly, "Mom, can you make French toast today? I like it with honey." I looked at him and smiled, my heart swelling. Just a few months ago, he wouldn't even touch the food I prepared. "Now," he said, "Mom makes." As if those words had always been there. Once, after coming home from a night shift, I was so exhausted that I fell asleep on the couch. When I woke up, I saw a blanket draped over me, and next to it, a handwritten note in crooked letters. Mom, I made a breakfast for you. It's not as good as yours. I kept that note. I pressed it into my journal. To others, it might look like the messy handwriting of a third grader. But to me, it was Eli's first declaration of love. A small love, but a real one. I used to think that to be called mom, I had to do something big. I had to sacrifice. I had to carry burdens. But no, it turns out that with enough love, presence, and patience, a mother-child bond can grow from the smallest of gestures. Now Eli often sneaks into my room at night to share little stories. Sometimes it's about his class, sometimes a new game, and sometimes he says nothing, just lies next to me, hugs a pillow, and whispers, "Mom, I feel peaceful." I stroke his hair, my heart melting with warmth. Daniel saw all of it. One evening, after we finished cleaning the kitchen, he hugged me from behind and whispered, "I used to think Eli would never accept anyone else. But you gave him something I never dared to dream of. A real mom." Oh, I didn't reply. I just held his hand and gently shook my head. It wasn't me who gave it. He chose. I was just waiting. Sometimes I still think about those early days when I did everything for Eli and received only silence in return. When I ladled soup into bowls, wrapped sandwiches for his lunch, scribbled notes with kind words, and never heard a single word back. But now it's different. One day, he came home from school and excitedly shared that the teacher had asked them to write a short essay titled, "Who is the most important person in your life?" Eli held up the paper to me, smiling shyly. "Mom, can you read it?" In it, he wrote, "Mom Laura didn't give birth to me, but she's always there. When I'm hurt, she worries. When I cry, she hugs me. When I do something wrong, she doesn't yell. She just asks, 'Are you feeling sad?' She's not like anyone else. She's like a nightlight when I'm scared of the dark. She's the one I want to call mom forever." Oh, I burst into tears. Eli sat next to me, a little flustered, and gently wiped my tears with his hand. "Mom, did I make you sad?" I hugged him tight. "No, sweetheart. I'm just happy." Oh, I used to fear I would never be a mother because I couldn't bear children. But Eli taught me, you don't need shared blood to be a mother. You just need a heart. And my heart, for a long time now, has not belonged to me but to the eyes, the smile, and the voice of a once-lost child who now calls me Mom. Oh, the winter when Eli was in 5th grade. The snow was heavier than usual. The roads were blanketed in white, silent like carpets of stillness, and the wind pierced through windows cold as glass. Yet strangely, our home had never felt warmer. Eli was now a 10-year-old boy, taller, stronger, but his familiar, quiet eyes remained. Except now, they no longer held defensiveness or distance. Those eyes sought me each morning. Each time he came home, always accompanied by a small hug and a warm greeting. "Mom, I'm home." I needed nothing more. I was still Lorath woman who didn't give birth, who shared no genes, no bloodline with Eli. But I knew I was a mother not because of paperwork or DNA, but because my son had chosen me with his young, open heart. And that meant more to me than any title ever could. That Christmas, Daniel brought home a tall pine tree and placed it in the living room. The three of us decorated it together, stringing up lights, placing a star on top, and hanging a garland Eli had crafted himself. Eli secretly made a gift for me, a small handmade photo album. Inside were snapshots of our shared moments, the first day I held his hand to school, the day he gave me that messy drawing, and the day he graduated 3rd grade. Each photo had a handwritten caption from Eli. "Mom, thank you for staying." When I turned to the last page, there was a picture of Eli hugging me from behind, sunlight catching the strands of his hair. Beneath it were the words, "You didn't give me life, but you gave me love. And that's what makes you my real mom." I looked at Daniel. He just smiled and said quietly, "I guess no one will ever call you a replacement again." I smiled too. I no longer felt the need to prove anything. All the doubt, pain, and loneliness from the beginning now felt like melted snow under the first spring light. I had learned so much on this journey as a stepmother, but the greatest lesson was this: true love doesn't need to be returned right away. With enough patience, it will be received. The day Eli started middle school, I stood at the school gate, watching him walk in, backpack on his shoulder, steps sure and steady. Just before disappearing behind the buildings, he turned, waved, and called out, "See you later." Mom. That word mom echoed endlessly in my heart. That winter, the snow still fell thick from the sky, but inside me, it had already melted. I no longer needed spring to come, because my son had become spring, blooming in a life I once thought frozen. I didn't give birth to him, but I stayed. I loved him. I waited for him. And one day, he opened the door to his heart, stepped out, and called me mom. That was enough. That was the moment I truly became a mother completely. In this snowy land of America,